since we're talking about Pride and Prejudice today, the movie.
Yes.
What do you think has helped to keep Pride and Prejudice so popular for such a long period of time?
First of all, it's just the amazing writing by Jane Austen. And secondly, I think it's because Pride and Prejudice has characters that people could easily relate to from their own lives.
Mm-hmm. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so interesting, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, podcasts, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, and I'm joined by my good friend, Sharon Lin.
Hello, everybody. Thank
Welcome
you, Amanda,
back.
for having me once again.
Thank you for gracing our show with
Thank
your
you.
company.
Sure.
Is there anything you would like to say to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Sharon Lin, and I have 2 shows at RTI, Come Along and That's Debatable. And actually, I will be leaving RTI very soon for those who missed this update. Today is actually my final day here, but I'll also be in touch. I mean, like, we're friends.
I mean,
So-
I'm still going to ask you for interviews.
Aw.
But, so we're very lucky to have you here on your last day.
Yeah.
So it's great. We get to talk about something that we both love.
Mm-hmm. So today we are going to talk about Pride and Prejudice 2005. So it's the adapted movie from the book Pride and Prejudice. So today I will be focusing on this movie specifically instead of the whole novel, which is, quite different, film, book to screen adaptation. There are different things. So I just want to make it clear. And Pride and Prejudice 2005, directed by the director Joe Wright, starring some of very famous actors that people might know. For example, Keira Knightley.
Oh, definitely know.
Dame Judi Dench is in it, and also Matthew McFadden plays Mr. Darcy. Also Rosamund Pike and Tallulah Riley. Anyway, also Donald Sutherland, who recently passed away. He played Mr. Bennet. Anyway, this film is my comfort film of all time. I've rewatched it. I don't know. I would definitely watch it at least once or twice a month. And I've been doing this since I was in high school.
So you can quote the movie.
So,
as you watch it, I
know
what
every line
is
of
coming
this
next.
movie.
Yes.
I know every line of this movie.
This is so good.
Wait, but you haven't seen this film. You haven't.
No, this is why I'm excited about this, is because I think I've definitely talked on Michelle's show about the book Pride and Prejudice.
Yes,
by Jane
I listened
Austen.
to those episodes.
You did.
When
You
you
were there.
talk about Regency romances.
So, yes.
Yeah.
And so I love Pride and Prejudice, the book, and I just recently read it for my second time. But I have never seen the movie. I've always wanted to.
You should. It's also like free meme material throughout the whole movie. It's made with good sense of humor. I think that's one of the reasons that I find it so comforting.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you'll appreciate it.
I really want to watch it. So I'm excited to talk about this because I've always wanted to see the movie. I am excited to talk about it and to really dig into some of these characters, because the closest I've done to this is by trapping my boyfriend in a room with me and then talking at him about all the characters in Pride and Prejudice.
Cool.
That's it. I'm like, you don't understand.
Do you not want to know who's taking it?
You need to know. They're trying to get married, but he's an absolute piece of garbage. Mr. Darcy is also a rude, I can't say the word I want to say, I know. person at the beginning.
But also,
he's so rude, but he's such a good guy.
But in all of the, I think, screen adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, including this one that I have a novel with the movie cover, it sounds like this. They make Mr. Darcy really hot.
Because he is.
Yeah,
that's one of the first things you hear about it. Okay, we'll have to get to the summary after this. But one of the first things they say about him in the novel is tall, mysterious, extremely handsome, and extremely available friend, Mr. Darcy, who everyone likes until he opens his mouth because he's a jerk.
Are we allowed to say jerk?
We could say jerk. Okay. It's not the word I wanted to say still, but worries. Anyway, that's the idea of it. So
see, we already have so much. This is, even though Pride and Prejudice, the novel, was written in 1813, but we're still nerding out so much about this nearly 2,000
years. In 2010.
No.
Not 2000. Yeah.
200 years afterwards.
It's just very relatable.
It's just iconic and timeless. Yeah.
Okay, so officially, let's get into the summary. Sharon, for those of us out there who haven't seen the movie and maybe who have never even read the book, could you give us a summary of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie?
Sure. So, of course, like from the name, this is a movie adapted from the book written by Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. And it came out in 2005. And I'm going to read a very short summary that I got online. It's a mixture of, I think, IMDb and also Spark Notes. So shout out to people. So this film features 5 sisters from an English family of landed gentry as they deal with issues of marriage, morality, and misconceptions. And there are some key characters that we kind of touch on. For example, you can say the female lead, Elizabeth Bennet or Lizzie Bennet, and Fitzwilliam Darcy, Mr. Darcy, also other important characters like Mr. Bingley, also Mr. Collins and Mr. Wickham, which we will touch on as many of them as we could in this episode.
Yeah. I mean, like, we could give a quick overview right now, which is pretty, like, simple. Where, like, the Bennets are the main family.
Yeah.
The 2 main characters are Lizzie, who's the biggest one.
No, I think Lizzie is the second sister, right?
Yes, but she has an older sister.
Yeah. Jane.
The novel mostly surrounds who Jane and Lizzie are going to get married to.
Yes.
Then into town come Mr. Bingley. He's handsome,
amiable, handsome, conveniently rich.
Very, like, perfect, suitable man. His friend, Mr. Darcy, we already put him on blast. Everyone knows who he is. There's Mr. Collins, who is their relative, who works for another very rich woman out in the countryside.
Catherine de Bourgh.
And he's going to take their fortune by inheritance. And he's kind of just like, he's not a bad person, but he's just really annoying.
Like disappointing.
The most annoying person you know. Yeah. Like, you can't actually get rid of them because they haven't done anything offensive.
And I'm sure we all know those kind of people in our own lives.
You just know
sometimes
that person.
In our own family.
That's exactly it. So that's Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins is the obnoxious relative you can't get rid of, and he is going to steal their money legally. He's not actually trying to steal it. It's just going to him.
Yeah, because women couldn't inherit,
Women can only inherit money if there's no male relatives.
Yeah.
And then there is Mr. Wickham, who is a piece of trash con man.
Yeah.
He's also hot, but he's a piece of trash con man.
So on the surface, people are naturally attracted to, like, his very happy manners. But once you get to know of him, he's really not okay.
He's not a good person. And then Lizzie also has younger sisters.
3. Mary, Kitty, and Lydia.
Oh, yes. I forgot about Mary because Mary reads all the time. Kitty and Lydia like to fool around with boys, and they're kind of airheads.
Yeah. They like to hang out with young officers, and actually, spoiler, one of them, they brought some trouble to the family because of it. So, yeah. So
that's our quote unquote quick introduction. So I'll finish up, like, the major beats you'd need to know then. So Mr. Bingley, Mr. Darcy come to town. There is a ball where they're all introduced. Bingley and Jane fall in love, and Mr. Darcy is extremely rude to Lizzie, and so everyone starts to shun him.
Yeah.
After that ball, then Jane and Mr. Bingley start to fall in love, but they are separated. Then, so Jane is heartbroken. The 2 handsome men move away, disappear from their lives for a period of time. So Lizzie goes to go visit her friend who got married to Mr. Collins, the obnoxious family member, because she likes her friend. So while she's there, she happens to run into Mr. Darcy, who is basically related to Mr. Collins' neighbor, for, like, shortening it. And while they're there, they kind of bond. Mr. Darcy thinks he's, like, really hitting it off with Lizzie, and Lizzie is just kind of, like, tolerating him. And he's like, wow, I'm really making it happen. This is great. So after, like, visiting for, like, maybe around a month, Mr. Darcy's like, hey, Lizzie, you should marry me because I'm the best you're ever going to do. And Lizzie, who has not yet been impressed with him, is like, why would you say that? Get out of my face. Absolutely not. This is, of course, very embarrassing for Mr. Darcy. So they separate. He writes an angry letter, shoves the letter into her hands, and disappears from the story for a long period of time. Lizzie reads it, and it's basically a letter that's, like, ragging on her family. But as she reads it, she realizes that everything he says is true. Her family does kind of suck. Like, they're impolite. They don't really pay attention. They're inconsiderate of other people. But he's also explaining his own behavior as, like, I'm not as much of a jerk as you think. You didn't have the context for why I behaved that way. So out of this letter, Lizzie goes back to meet her family, only to find out that basically there has been a disaster, and her youngest sister, who likes to fool around, has run off with an officer unmarried, which is a huge thing because you have to get married. And
scandal.
If it gets out that they're together, their entire family will be ruined.
Yeah.
Also, This is Mr. Wickham, the like garbage guy, who is like at least 10 years older than Lydia, who is like 15. So just like let that sink in. This is like, it's gross. So the whole family is like ruined. They're trying to figure out what's going on, what had happened. And suddenly the problem just gets fixed. And they find the two, they find the sister, Lydia, they find Mr. Wickham, they get married. And it all comes to a head when Mr. Bingley, the first nice, handsome guy, comes back and he meets Jane. They fall in love. They decide to get married. Then Elizabeth meets Mr. Darcy and he's like, hey, that was me the whole time. I went and I said, I found your sister because I realized you were right. I was being rude and I should just help people and I clean up my own mess. And Lizzie's like, oh, you know what? You were right too. My family is really embarrassing a lot of the times. And this has kind of thrown that into the limelight. And that they basically realized that they had too much pride and too much prejudice against each other to admit it. And they agree that actually we are in love. Let's get married. And then that's the end. So that's like all the biggest beats as fast as I could go through them.
Yeah, thanks for that. Even though it was written in 1813, I mean, the source material, but it really touches on, getting to know someone who are new in your lives and, just the very human element of figuring someone out. And you've heard, how other people who are in the same circle describe them and you've met them before. So anyway, many of these scenes, of course, the movie, I think it's around 2 hours. Of course, they couldn't cover everything. But what I really wanted to say is they did some of the very iconic moments so with just very funny sense of humor.
And then in that is, of course, like Lizzie's mic drop moment.
Okay, so I think this scene is done in a very iconic way in this adaptation. So during the ball, Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy chatted about, oh, I saw you dancing with a pretty girl. That was Jane. How do you think of her? And Mr. Bingley very amiably said, oh, she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And, and Darcy agrees. And Bingley, being the nice man that he is, he said that, you should basically, you should check out her sister, Lizzie, who's also very, wonderful. And Mr. Darcy, in the movie, he said, yeah, but she's not handsome enough to tempt me. So you better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles instead of wasting your time with me.
Yeah,
but when he was describing
just,
this,
calls her mid.
Yeah. When he was describing this, Lizzie and her friend overheard this conversation. Anyway, she had a very iconic comeback later on when the Mr. Bingley, Jane, Lizzie, Mr. Darcy, and also their mom were chatting together, and she gave just like a very like mic drop moment of a comeback because she overheard how Mr. Darcy described her. So yeah.
What'd she say?
She said, oh, so Mr. Darcy asked, so what would you suggest, to encourage affection? And Lizzie said, dancing, even if one's partner is barely tolerable, because that's how Mr. Darcy described her. And she just locked eyes with him and then walked away. Wow. I aspire to do that to anyone who dares disrespect my presence.
Rude.
Yeah. And also, this movie just gave us some very iconic lines, like when Mr. Collins went to Longbourn to have dinner.
Oh yes.
And do you know the potato line? He just said, "What excellent boiled potatoes!" Yes, that was like a free meme, like meme land for like all of the Pride and Prejudice fans. And again, that the articulation, the moment of the acting is just top notch, and also the proposal scene that you were describing, it was also done in a very iconic way with two very good actors.
Awkward proposal where he's like, and I think everyone has seen that. That's the one in the rain,
and also just
where he's like, you have to
brown nosing Catherine de Bourgh.
But like bringing it back to kind of like more of our normal questions, like I feel like we at this point, like we've been talking about it for a while, so people can hear or probably have already like picked out some things that we personally really like about this, like what makes it meaningful to us. So let's go back to one of my favorite questions, which is, what do you think makes this story, the movie, Pride and Prejudice, a tale of our time?
So what I think make this adaptation from 2005, A Tale of Our Time, is really the direction is very good, and it's with very good actors that people would really, the acting is very engaging. So again, this is just another complement of all of the Jane Austen adaptations that really draws people in. And I think you would also agree that Pride and Prejudice is really like the building block for all of the like modern day rom-coms and also a lot of the works that we still see nowadays, even though it's been more than 200 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I think it definitely does like lend itself that way. Like it feels like this is more, it reminds me more of like a K-drama, to be honest. Like in terms of the story structure.
And,
Yeah, exactly.
And also this movie is family friendly. So it doesn't have a lot of extreme scenes. Yeah, it's very beautiful, and I think the pace is slower. So maybe that's why I personally gravitate towards period pieces that really spend more time on really cultivating the details, either with the setting or with how people conduct themselves. Like how you describe, the two younger sisters, they have a really different air from, for example, the older sisters or Mr. Bingley's sister, for example. So
yeah. Can I ask you, is that kind of like consideration for the time period and for like developing the characters? Is that what draws you back to watching this? You said you watch it like twice a month, or if not twice a month, like you watch it like very often.
At least, yeah.
Right. Do you think that's what like draws you in and like makes you want to rewatch it?
Good question. I think it's just I find period movies really just have a natural draw for me, especially when everything complements one another, like the music, the acting, also the choice of costuming, and the way the dialogues are really carried out. I think one thing as a former English major I find very thrilling from these movies is you get to see how words that were written hundreds of years ago get uttered out by a modern day human being that's really doing a great job. I think that's probably one of the thrills of just how people talk back then, even though it might be a different language choice, different word choice, but the sentiment is so relatable that it's timeless.
Well, and that's also like especially why I think like movies for this kind of material are really valuable, because for me, when I was like reading the book, that was a huge barrier for entry, was like that it's not really relatable. So I think films that do that, like this movie, are a lot more accessible for people because of what you just said. Like you can, if you don't necessarily understand the words because it is outdated, frankly.
A little bit distant maybe, but with movies.
You can see it. Like you can feel the meaning behind it. Like you totally get what's going on, even if you don't understand like the exact verbiage.
And one thing I have to shout out is the iconic hand flex scene from Mr. Darcy. I know you haven't watched the movie.
Tell me about it though, but I want to see it. I want to see it. Okay, tell us about it.
Really?
or no, you just want to be like and watch for that.
Yeah, people need to go watch it, and you have to. I think you will
watch
really,
for the hand flex scene. You will see it.
I think you will really enjoy this adaptation. Okay. Really, if you go on Etsy, there's so many merch that came from this scene.
Oh, really?
It's so iconic.
Okay, I'm so
also
excited.
The boiled potatoes thing.
Yes. Okay. I'll watch the movie and then I'll go look for what is it, Pride and Prejudice meme material.
Yes.
So that I can get deep into it. I'm excited. Well, it has been so much fun to talk with you.
Thank you.
I have one last question.
Sure.
And it's a little bit of a doozy, but I think we can do it. So, if you could give Pride and Prejudice a one-phrase subtitle of your very own, Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 movie, a one-phrase subtitle of your very own, what would it be?
An iconic adaptation of the timeless novel. For me, it's the iconic one. I always go back to this one.
That's it, the iconic adaptation. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's what it is then. So, Sharon, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for like being here and like nerding out with me about all of this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for doing the heavy lifting of, just like summer and everything. Thank you.
No. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
so it has just been a joy to sit here and talk with you. And I hope that everybody else out there enjoyed listening to it. Thank you for joining us here on Tales of Our Time. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens. And this has been Sharon Lin.
Yeah, my final recording
at Radio Taiwan International.
But I'll be back in the future, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned and follow you. Is there anywhere people could follow you if they are interested?
Yes, sure. So listeners, if you've been liking the work I've been doing, feel free to follow at Sharon Lin _human on Instagram to stay updated.
I do. I follow.
Thank you.
So join me. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Anyway, this has been Tales of Our Time, and I hope you enjoyed learning more about Pride and Prejudice from 2005, the iconic Adaptation, a tale of our time. And we'll see you next time.